Most people get paid and ask one question: what can I afford this month? But people who actually build wealth tend to think differently. They ask, how much of this paycheck can I keep working for my future? And that one change in thinking can completely change what happens to your money. So in this video, I'm going to show you a simple way to split every paycheck: 70% for your life, 20% for building wealth, and 10% for financial freedom. Now, I want to make something clear before we start. There is no secret rule saying every millionaire or every person in the top 1% uses exactly 70-20-10. They don't. Different incomes, families, taxes, businesses, and lifestyles require different numbers. But the principle behind this system is what matters. Spend less than you make. Invest consistently. And keep building financial options, because earning more money does not automatically make you wealthy. What you do after the money hits your account is what matters. Let's start with the biggest bucket. 70%. This is your life bucket, your rent or mortgage, food, utilities, transportation, insurance, phone bill, subscriptions, entertainment, restaurants, basically, your normal lifestyle. If your paycheck after taxes is $5,000, this system gives you about $3,500 to run your life. And here is where most people get into trouble. Their income goes up, and immediately their lifestyle goes up with it. They make an extra $500, new car payment. They get a raise, better apartment. They get a bonus, new phone, more restaurants, more shopping. And suddenly, someone earning $100,000 feels just as broke as they did when they were earning $50,000. That is lifestyle inflation, and it can quietly destroy your ability to build wealth. Because if every dollar of extra income creates another dollar of extra lifestyle, you never create distance between what you earn and what you spend. That distance is where wealth starts. So the goal of the 70% bucket is not, you must spend exactly 70%. Actually, if you can live comfortably on 60% or even 50%, that gives you more room to build. Think of 70% more like a ceiling, not a target you have to hit. If you make $5,000 and only need $3,000 to live, you don't need to find another $500 to spend just because the formula says 70%. Move that extra money toward your future. And this is one of the biggest mindset differences between looking wealthy and actually becoming wealthy. Looking wealthy usually requires spending more. Building wealth usually requires keeping more. Now let's move to the second bucket, 20%. This is your wealth bucket, and this is the money I do not want disappearing into random spending. This money has a job. It needs to build assets. Let's continue with our $5,000 paycheck. 20% is $1,000. Every month, before lifestyle gets a chance to eat that money, you are putting $1,000 toward your future. That could include retirement investing, a workplace 401, an IRA if you are eligible, or diversified long-term investments that fit your goals and risk tolerance. If your employer offers a 401 match, learn how your specific plan works. Employer matching contributions can add money to your retirement account when you contribute under the plan's rules. And this is where automation becomes powerful. Instead of waiting until the end of the month and saying, I'll invest whatever is left, you reverse it. The money moves toward investing when you get paid. Then you live on what remains, because you already know what happens when investing is the last thing on the list. There is usually nothing left. Something always comes up. Dinner, Amazon, a trip, a new gadget, another subscription. So instead of relying on discipline every month, build a system. Payday comes in, investment money moves out. Now you have less money available to accidentally spend. And when you invest, you also do not need to turn yourself into a professional stock picker. For many long-term investors, diversified funds can provide exposure to many investments rather than putting everything into a small number of companies. The sexinvestor.gov specifically emphasizes diversification as a way to manage investment risk, although diversification cannot eliminate losses. The goal here is not, how can I double my money next month? The goal is, how can I keep buying assets for the next 10, 20, or 30 years? That is a completely different game. And there is something else I want you to notice. When most people get a raise, they ask, what can I upgrade? With this system, I want you to ask, how much more can I invest? Imagine your income goes from $5,000 a month to $6,000. You could immediately increase your lifestyle by $1,000. Or you could keep your lifestyle almost the same and send a large part of that raise into investments. That is how income growth can turn into wealth growth, because your goal is not simply to make more money. Your goal is to keep converting your income into assets. Now we get to the last 10%, and I call this your freedom bucket. If you earn $5,000, that is $500 a month. This money gives you options. Part of it may go toward building or maintaining your emergency fund. The CFPB describes an emergency fund as cash set aside specifically for unexpected expenses such as repairs, medical costs, or a loss of income. Because investing is important, but having investments while having absolutely no cash available for an emergency can put you in a bad position. Imagine your car suddenly needs a $1,500 repair. You don't want every unexpected expense automatically going onto a credit card. That is what this bucket helps prevent. But once you have an emergency cushion, that makes sense for your situation. This 10% bucket can start doing other things. Maybe you're saving for a house. Maybe you want to start a small business. Maybe you want cash available for an opportunity. Maybe you want to pay down expensive debt faster. Maybe you know a major expense is coming next year. That is why I call it freedom money. It buys options. And having options is one of the most underrated forms of wealth. Think about two people. They both earn $80,000 a year. Person number one spends almost everything. Nice car, nice apartment, new clothes, trips, everything looks great. But if their paycheck stops for 1 month, panic. Person number two may look more normal, but they have savings. They invest every month. They have little or no high interest debt. Their lifestyle does not require every dollar they earn. Who actually has more freedom? Usually it is the person with fewer financial obligations. That is the part social media does not show you. Wealth is not only what you own. Sometimes wealth is what you are no longer forced to do. You don't have to stay at a terrible job because missing one paycheck would destroy you. You don't have to put every emergency on a credit card. You don't have to panic every time something breaks. You have choices, and choices are powerful. Now, there is one situation where I might temporarily change this whole 70-20-10 formula. High interest debt. If someone has thousands of dollars sitting on credit cards at very high interest rates, I would not blindly tell them, just invest 20% and ignore the debt. The CFPB has also highlighted paying down high interest debt as an important step toward financial stability. So your version might temporarily look different. Maybe 70% living, 20% debt payoff, 10% emergency savings. Then once that expensive debt is under control, you redirect that 20% toward investing. This is why personal finance should never be treated like one formula that works perfectly for every person. The percentages are a framework. Your situation decides the details. Now let's say you're watching this thinking, there is no way I can live on 70% of my paycheck. That's okay. Start where you are. Maybe right now your numbers are 85% living, 10% investing, 5% savings. That is still better than spending 100%. Then work toward 80-15-5, then maybe 75-15-10. And eventually, if your income grows while you control your lifestyle, you might get to 70-20-10. Or even better, the real goal is not perfection. The goal is creating a gap. Income comes in here, lifestyle stays down here, and the gap gets wider over time. Because the wider that gap becomes, the faster you can build assets. And this also explains why making more money can be so powerful when you already have good money habits. Let's say someone earns $3,000 a month and spends $2,700. They only have $300 left. Then they increase their income to $5,000, but keep their lifestyle around $3,000. Now, instead of having $300 available to build wealth, they have $2,000. That is a massive difference. Your income grew, but your lifestyle did not grow at the same speed. That is where things start getting interesting, because now every raise can buy investments instead of just buying more bills. Every bonus can strengthen your financial position. Every extra income stream can shorten the distance between where you are and where you want to be. Now imagine doing this for years. Every paycheck, life, wealth, freedom, life, wealth, freedom. You are not trying to get rich from one lucky investment. You are building a machine, and every time you get paid, the machine gets fed. That is the part people miss. Building wealth can actually be boring. You don't need a dramatic financial decision every week. You need a repeatable system. Money comes in, bills get covered, assets get purchased, savings get built. Repeat. And once your income increases, resist the urge to send every extra dollar toward lifestyle. Give your future a raise too. So if I wanted to start using this system today, here's what I would do. First, calculate your monthly take-home income. Use the money that actually reaches your account. Then look at your current spending. How much is going toward housing, food, cars, bills, entertainment, shopping, and be honest. Then try to keep your lifestyle around 70% or less over time. Next, aim to direct around 20% toward long-term wealth building if your finances allow it. And finally, use around 10% to build financial flexibility, emergency savings, near-term goals, opportunities, or accelerating expensive debt depending on your situation. And automate as much as possible. Because the fewer decisions you need to make every payday, the harder it becomes to mess up the system. Now here is the biggest lesson from this entire video. The 70-20-10 numbers are not what make this powerful. You could use 80-15-5. You could use 60-30-10. You could create your own percentages. The important part is the order. Most people earn, spend, and save whatever is left. We want to earn. Intentionally allocate money toward the future. Then control the lifestyle around what remains. That simple change turns your paycheck from something you consume into something you use to build. So the next time your paycheck hits your account, don't just ask, what can I buy? Ask, how much of this paycheck can make my future stronger? Because a bigger paycheck can make you look richer. But what you consistently keep, invest, and build is what can actually make you wealthier. 70% for your life, 20% for wealth, 10% for freedom. Adjust the numbers to your situation, but make sure every paycheck has a plan. Because if you don't tell your money where to go, it has a funny way of disappearing. If you want more videos about building wealth, managing money, credit, and avoiding expensive financial mistakes, subscribe to the channel.